everybody, Yellowstone Wolf here, and I am actually really excited to bring you this video because today we're going to be talking about the United States Space Force. Now, why exactly is it that we haven't had a United States Space Force until now, you may be wondering? That's something we're going to be covering in the video. What kind of technology does this United States Space Force have at their disposal? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Okay, what exactly has stopped us from having this Space Force? What kind of technology is at its disposal? Who is involved in the creation of the United States Space Force? How exactly the technology works that this Space Force is using? And a little bit as to what exactly we can use this technology to do, and how this technology being applied in space can actually create for space exploration for humanity. We can go to freaking Jupiter if we want to. Okay, we could take trips to the moon. Okay, that's the kind of technology we're talking about here. Okay, we're talking about revolutionizing human culture and the way that the species views its role and its place in the cosmos. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to get started, shall we? So I'm gonna pull up my PowerPoint presentation here. This here, ladies and gentlemen, is the logo for the United States Space Force. Okay, and if you notice the triangular shape here, that's rather interesting. We'll get to that in a moment. But it is Department of the Air Force. Okay, so this is almost like a part of or a branch of the Air Force. Okay, but it is, if I'm not mistaken, it is part of its own, it's part of its own branch at this point. It's a new branch of the military. Okay, so while it may be associated with the Air Force, I don't think it's necessarily is a part of the Air Force. I think that it's its own separate branch of the military. We have a Navy, we have an Army, we have an Air Force, and now we have a Space Force. Okay, so this symbol here, this triangular symbol, is actually quite telling if we look into the patents that were recently made public by the United States Navy regarding the TR-3B. This is a top secret flying triangle, okay? A top secret anti-gravity vehicle, okay? Now, how this anti-gravity vehicle works is actually very interesting. The way that it works is by funneling large amounts of energy or electricity through very, very narrow needle-like points, and doing this in a way that ends up creating for an anti-gravity field in this small little area here, basically bombarding this small area with tons and tons of energy to based on all these needle points, funneling this intense amount of energy down to a very, very narrow point, and this ends up creating sort of an anti-gravity field of sorts. Okay, but it's just in this localized area, okay, just where this field is being made by this energy being released. Okay, but this is where it gets interesting. It was discovered that if this small field here was placed in something like an argon gas or something like that, it had this rippling effect where it would end up affecting the argon gas in a way to where it would create this type of an anti-gravity field that's being produced here all throughout the argon gas. So it's almost like it would create a bunch of little anti-gravity bubbles. Through this little anti-gravity bubble, it would create a bunch of other little anti-gravity bubbles in the argon gas. And that argon gas would basically, instead of being a bunch of little anti-gravity bubbles, it would turn it all into one large anti-gravity bubble. Okay, and that anti-gravity bubble would be able to be directed and moved, you could steer it back and forth. Okay, now interestingly enough, if you surrounded a triangular vehicle in this argon gas, like a tube full of this argon gas and these needle points and this energy and this frequency, okay, this anti-gravity field, basically, which it is based off of frequency. It's like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay, so what we're talking about here is basically energy being vibrated at a specific frequency, and that frequency creates an anti-gravity field. Basically, it's outside of the quote unquote the laws of gravity or the laws of physics in that sense. Okay, we're talking about a frequency that is so high that it goes and defies gravity. It goes beyond the frequency of gravity. Okay, and then using this frequency to distribute it all throughout the argon gas, creating a much larger anti-gravity bubble that basically surrounds this vehicle. Okay, this is huge. This is huge. This basically means that this vehicle is not just able to fly out in space or zip all over the sky without experiencing any G-force, but this thing is also able to go down to the bottom of the ocean, baby. This thing is able to go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean without experiencing any sort of pressure from the ocean or experiencing any sort of temperature changes or anything like that, because there's literally an anti-gravity bubble surrounding the TR-3B. Now, where would we get so much energy that we could create so many of these anti-gravity little bubbles here and creating that throughout the argon gas? How are we going to get so much energy to even funnel enough energy through these needles to get an anti-gravity field? Well, interestingly enough, the Navy also released a public patent that was for an infinite energy, zero-point energy device that creates seriously a terawatt of energy. And we're talking, just to like give you an understanding of what a terawatt of energy is. A terawatt of energy is 1,000 gigawatts of electricity, okay? Terawatt of electricity is 1,000 gigawatts of electricity. And the biggest nuclear reactor in the United States of America is in Phoenix, Arizona. It is the Palo Verde nuclear power plant. And it only produces 700 gigawatts of electricity. And we're talking something that's like miles big, many square miles large, and it's using uranium to heat water and create steam. Okay, so it's a glorified steam engine. We're using a glorified steam engine to create 700 gigawatts of energy when we could be using this patent that the Navy just released for a device that is seriously like no bigger than this, okay? Like 3 foot by 3 foot device that produces a terawatt of energy, okay? Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of quote unquote heat that is going to be going into making all this energy. And that's also why the Navy released their patent for a room temperature superconductor that allows this free energy this infinite energy device, pretty much, this 0-point energy device, to run at like room temperature. Now, if you take the room temperature superconductor, you take the free energy 0-point energy device, and then you take the TR-3B and you put the free energy device, this terawatt producing reactor that is no bigger than this 0-point energy device, okay, you put that in the middle of the TR-3B, you put this the room temperature the room temperature superconductor in there with it. Okay, that's what's going to power all these needles with energy. That's what's going to create the anti-gravity little bubbles here, and then putting the argon gas in here is going to end up creating the anti-gravity bubbles that, you know, creates the big one that surrounds the entire vehicle and allows it to zip all over the sky, or in some cases, just disappear out of thin air. Now, I'm going to explain how that's possible. Okay, yes, I'm going to explain how that's possible. And it's really not all that far-fetched if you understand the laws of physics and, you know, you understand what exactly is going on with energy, frequency, and vibration, okay? So this is the technology that the Space Force has at its disposal. And we've had this technology at our disposal for some time, but it's been top secret for a good reason, and I'll get to that in a little bit, okay? The kind of technology they also have at their disposal is this. We're talking about like nano-layered metals, okay? The way that they do this is actually, it's really brilliant. It makes perfect sense. So the idea is that in order to get like the strongest metals you possibly can, in order to like molecularly structure metals on like an atomic level, layering these metals atom by atom, okay, to make like the strongest stuff you can, the strongest metals, in many cases artificial elements and stuff like that you possibly can. In order to do that, the easiest way to do that is in the vacuum of space, or in a place with no gravity. Okay, and the reason why is because what you can end up doing is you can end up basically breaking, by melting these metals, you can end up melting them all the way down to like where you can manipulate them on an atomic level in an anti-gravity field. And you can do so using frequencies, because these frequencies aren't just like, just affecting this space here, wherever the frequency is. The frequency goes all the way down to like a molecular level. The vibration that goes all the way down to like an atomic level, okay, and it affects the structure of the atoms. All right, so the Space Force, which is basically, you guys, what it is it's the military industrial complex in space, and it's been this way for some time. But like I said, I'm going to get into the reason why it hasn't become public and why it's been top secret and all that in a little bit. First, I want you to understand that this stuff has been going on for some time. They've known how to do this stuff for some time, okay, and that this is not new news, okay, especially if you just dig into this topic a little bit. All right, the idea is that they can end up creating, for atomically layered metals that are like put together like on a nano scale, okay, thus making them like extremely tough and durable and dang near impenetrable. Okay, and they can do so with frequency. Okay, and they can also do things like, say, grow gold. Okay, all of these things based off of frequencies. Okay, so when you understand the laws of physics the way the military industrial complex does, okay, then you're able to do all sorts of stuff with that understanding. Okay, and it's like what Nikola Tesla said: if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay, so how is gold created? Through energy, frequency, and vibration. So if you know how to replicate that process of energy, frequency, and vibration to create gold, boom, you can create gold. Okay, or you can layer nanometals to be dang near indestructible. Okay, and that's where this whole idea of element 115 comes in. If you haven't heard of element 115, it's absolutely incredible. And according to my research, where they got this stuff was off of like a flying saucer, or off of an ET craft. And this ET craft had this like impenetrable, what would you call, skin of sorts, this metal skin that they tried piercing it with a hammer, they tried chiseling it, they tried blowing it up, they tried everything. And nothing could penetrate this stuff, until what they did is they froze it in liquid nitrogen and then shattered it with a hydraulic jackhammer. All right, and it shattered. And once it shattered, they were able to investigate what exactly is this stuff. And it's something called what they call element 115. And what it is basically it's a metal, it's a version, it's an element, but it's a metal that when it's bombarded with electrons, whereas most metals, most molecules, most matter will disintegrate because the electrons end up disrupting the molecular structure of the atomic molecular structure of whatever it is that the electrons are hitting. This stuff actually ends up converting the electrons into energy, and basically begins to transform from being element 115 into element 116. But the thing is that it doesn't get enough bombardment from the electrons to actually convert into this element. So then once the bombardment of electrons stops, it ends up almost like releasing the energy, and it stays element 115. So basically what that means is that we're talking about like a molecular nano metal fiber of sorts, okay? A atomic fiber, basically, not just molecular, atomic, subatomic, okay? Like way down, okay, on like a molecular level, where this stuff is bombarded with electrons, it begins to tighten, okay, the fabric of its molecular structure tightens, and it's about to convert into element 116, and then it doesn't, and then it goes back. Whereas most everything else would just begin to decay and fall apart and just rip to pieces. So this is how these UFOs and stuff are able to zip across the sky and not experience any G-force. They don't just have to have an anti-gravity field. They could have an anti-gravity field mixed with like these nanometals, or with element 115 on the skin of their vehicle, so they don't experience any G's. They won't experience, say, moving through, say, multiples of C. This is where it gets the most important. We're talking about moving at multiples of C, or multiple times the speed of light. And yes, it's possible, okay? Einstein was smart, but he didn't understand everything. In fact, when asked what it's like to be the smartest person in the world, Einstein said, I don't know, go ask Tesla. When Einstein was asked what it was like to be the smartest man in the world, he said, I don't know, go ask Tesla. Go ask Nikola Tesla. Okay? And Nikola Tesla understood that multiples of C and aerial travel, interstellar travel, all of it, free energy, he knew all that stuff was possible over 100 years ago. And all of this has been held back for over 100 years, ladies and gentlemen, over 100 years. Okay? So this element 115 and these atomically structured nanometals and grown gold, and the use of frequency to create atomic structures, metal structures in space, and then allowing those metal structures to like harden, okay, and that creating like this incredibly tough, durable new metal. Okay, all this stuff is possible, and it's what's coding things like the TR3B. Okay, it allows these things to move through time and space rapidly, not just the anti-gravity field around them, but it's almost like ensuring that even if the anti-gravity field doesn't work very well, this thing is damn near indestructible. Okay, which the anti-gravity field is going to work. It's really incredible, the type of technology that we've had at our disposal for so long. Okay, and the way that this technology works is that it uses portals. It uses portal technology, vortexes. Okay, and by creating an anti-gravity field around this craft here, if you tune that field to a high enough frequency, then basically what's going to happen is that there's going to be a field that surrounds the vehicle that ends up taking it into a frequency that is out of human sight. Okay, that we cannot see into that frequency of light. So it's just, it could very well be there still physically, but because we don't see in that frequency of light, it's disappeared. And I would go as far as to say that it isn't just that, but that this thing is actually now in another frequency or another dimension, okay, and is able to travel in this other dimension outside of the confines of physical time and space. So that's why these things can pop up here and then be over there just like that. Okay? So basically what's happening is that this anti-gravity field is being used almost like a portal technology. When the frequency is jacked up high enough, you're almost like you're able to dial in. Okay, this is the time and this is the place in space and time that I want to go. Boom, and then you're there. Okay, so we're talking about like not just global flight in seconds. Okay, we're talking about like interstellar flight in minutes. We're talking about trips to the moon and back in an hour at the most, maybe even less. Probably even less if we're talking multiples of C. You'd probably have to just dial the stuff in and then you're there. Okay? Especially if you understand the way that vortexes work, the way that portal technology works, the way that anti-gravity works, the way that these nanometals protect you, and these like element 115 and stuff protect you from the G-force and from electron bombardment and all that stuff. Okay? Now, like I said, Nikola Tesla knew about this type of technology over 100 years ago, and he tried to bring this free energy technology and anti-gravity vehicles through gyroscopic vehicles, not through the TR3B, but gyroscopic vehicles which work just the same, okay? Or you're just relying on gyroscopics to create the anti-gravity field as opposed to the TR3B and the gases and yada, 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 okay? So his idea was to create a global network of sorts based on the use of Tesla coils and the use of amplifying the already existing electromagnetic pulse of the Earth, and then using his gyroscopic vehicles to travel from one place to another via the anti-gravity, via the ley lines, and this anti-gravity gyroscopic vehicle moving along these gravitational lines, these electromagnetic ley lines of the planet. Okay? So it's really, really interesting when you understand that this idea of global anti-gravity free energy technology has been around for over 100 years, but it was suppressed by J.P. Morgan. It was suppressed by the Rockefeller family, by the Rothschild family, because it threatened their monopoly and their plans for global domination. Now, if you understand that the Earth is basically almost like, while the Earth is a living being of sorts, it's also kind of like an electron for the sun. So the Earth is basically full of electricity and energy that is being channeled to it and through it all the time. And if you understand, the stuff I've talked about in my God is Real and Reincarnation is Physics video, if you've seen my aliens walking among us video, there's so many that where I've covered this type of stuff, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. Okay, what's most important is understanding the idea that there are certain places on the planet where the frequency of energy is high, really, really high, and makes interstellar travel much, much easier. Okay, so what we're basically talking about is the use of wormholes, or the use of black and white holes. A black hole is an energetic force in the universe that sucks energy in. Okay, some people call it a dark star. Basically, it's a star that is so powerful, its gravity is so intense that even its own light cannot escape. Okay, there's those, and then there is the white holes, which is basically like the exact opposite of a black hole. It's almost like just where energy spews and just continues to spew and spill over and erupt from these places in space and time. And this is how the universe is put together, through micro and macro black and white holes. Okay, through massive portals of energy and vortexes drawing energy in, and other vortexes spewing energy out. Okay, and that is what is creating this idea of a universe and what we experience as reality, all the way down to, like, an atomic structure. Okay, and if you look at the way that, say, atoms orbit an atomic, the way electrons orbit an atomic nucleus, it's very similar to the way that, say, planets orbit a star. Okay, and very similar to the idea of the galaxy and the stars orbiting the galactic center, and the fact that I propose the idea that our galaxy fields are actually like orbiting a massive hyperdimensional object. Okay, and that our galaxy fields are actually like an arm in a massive hyperdimensional object, which is actually just like a little pinhead in another massive hyperdimensional object. Okay, and understanding how these hyperdimensional energetic structures and systems work through the transfer of energy through black and white holes is basically what understanding the laws of physics is all about. And when you understand the basics of sacred geometry, when you understand the basics of the numerology and the numerics, the numerical language, the math of the universe, like the ratios, like phi and like the pi and e and all these infinite numbers, these quote unquote irrational numbers, when you understand how all these layer on top of one another to create the world that we know and understand, you can use that understanding to travel all over the universe. Okay, and basically what I'm saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Okay, the entire universe is energetically structured based off of harmonics and mathematics. Okay, because it's based off of harmonics, it is also based off of mathematics. Okay, and that basically means that whether it be atoms, human beings, the earth, the sun, the galaxy, the massive supermassive black hole at the center of all the galactic fields, et cetera, all of them are like different octaves in this harmonic resonance pattern of all creation. Okay? And when we understand that what we're looking at is basically different versions of vortexes, different versions of energy moving through the cosmos and back to itself again and again and again, okay, which if you haven't seen my Take the Red Pill video, if you haven't seen my my Aliens Walking Among Us video, you know, you should check those out, because I'm not going to explain everything I've already explained. Okay. The point is that there's a feedback loop of light and information that dispenses energy on levels that are beyond our imagining, from the 12D and beyond and below. Okay, and each of these vortexes, whether it be a galaxy, whether it be a hyperdimensional galactic field creator, whether it be a star or a planet or an atom or a person, it's all based off of harmonics. It's all based off of energy spinning. It's all based off of vortexes and energy moving through those vortexes and back to source. Okay? With that said, we're able to travel through this network of interconnected and interwoven black holes and white holes. We're able to travel through these vortexes, whether it be the vortexes that exist here on the planet and how they relate to the vortexes that are, you know, connected to the sun, and how they relate to the vortexes that are connected to the galaxy and to the multiverse, etc., etc. Okay? When you understand that essentially what we're talking about is electromagnetic fields here, densely nested electromagnetic fields, then you can basically ride certain portions of the electromagnetic field to hitch a ride to other star systems. Okay? And it's really actually quite simple when you understand the way that the galaxy is laid out, the way that everything is structured, when you understand that it's all based off of harmonics, it's all based off mathematics, that you just have to match a certain frequency of energy, and then you can basically use that frequency of energy to ride almost like surfing on a wave to that location in dimension in space and time, whether it be another star system, whether it be another galaxy or another planet, whatever. You can use this interconnected and interwoven energetic tapestry to transport yourself from one place to another. Like, seriously, in the blink of an eye, you can create wormholes that can literally bridge time and space. Okay, and it's all based off of frequency. It's all, once again, Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay, what we're looking at is an energetic frequency of vibration with all of these different cosmic bodies, whether it be an atomic body, whether it be an earth body, or a planetary body, a solar body, galactic, universal body, a multiversal body, etc. Okay, so with that understanding, with this idea that all of these stars and their electromagnetic fields and all of this stuff is interconnected, and this is how we can basically use these anti-gravity vehicles to move from one star system to another, is through these portals that already exist, and just matching the frequency at specific times and places to like go to specific times and places. It's really not all that hard to do. Okay, so yes, what I'm saying is that the sun is in fact like a hyperdimensional portal. It's like a hyperdimensional vortex of sorts, okay, that we are able to use to travel to and from different locations. Okay, this is where this whole idea of like our ancient ancestors talking about like star beings and stuff like that. Okay, our ancient ancestors understood that stuff, you know, came out of the sun, man. They understood flying saucers or alien beings or whatever came out of flying out of the sun. And you can look into my Aliens Walking Among Us video. I highly recommend you check that out, because I go into a lot deeper depth as to how all this stuff works. Okay, but what we're basically talking about here is hyperdimensional beings that have technology beyond our imagining, that is literally millions of years ahead of our own. Okay, and what that means is that because they understand the laws of physics so well, because they understand it so completely, they have used their understanding of technology not only to keep themselves hidden from us, but to travel the galaxy, travel the universe, and gain more and more knowledge about themselves, about other species, etc., etc. Now, we as individuals, as like a human race, are beginning to tap into the kind of understanding that these advanced extraterrestrial beings have. Okay, and that's where this type of technology, this TR3B technology comes in. That's where like the element 115 and stuff like that comes in, because whether or not you know it, and this is where it gets really interesting, these beings have been like drip feeding us little bits of technology. That way we can grow and accelerate and evolve as a species, and basically be welcomed into the realms of galactic citizenship, where we understand the basics and understandings of physics and use them to create a symbiotic relationship with all beings, all living creatures. Okay, so basically what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is the use of vortexes and frequencies of vibration, because this is actually the sun's tone right here. We're talking about the use of energy, frequency, and vibration to travel from one dimension of light to another. Okay, now if we understand the way that energy, frequency, and vibration creates different planes of consciousness, whether it be, you know, the way it creates consciousness here on Earth, whether it be the way it creates consciousness on Venus, on Jupiter, on Mars, or on Mercury, then we understand that these planes, these are planes of consciousness. Just because these places are not necessarily water-based or carbon-based, that doesn't necessarily mean that the beings here have to be water and carbon-based in order to exist. Okay, so these are different planes and realms of consciousness and existence that are interconnecting via the frequencies that already exist in our solar system. So like I said, it's almost like the Earth is an electron. All of our planets are like electrons orbiting an atomic nucleus of sorts. Okay, so with that understanding, it's really, really important to keep in mind that star systems like Sirius, for example, or say the Orion Nebula or the Draco Nebula or the Draco star system, whatever, the Orion stars, I think you get the idea. These things are like interwoven and interconnected with our star system, with the electromagnetic fields of our star system. And this is how it is that our ancestors say that this is where we came from. That's why they say that, because they understand the role of energy, frequency, and vibration in the production of life on this planet. Okay, and if we understand the idea of cymatics, we understand the idea of energy, frequency, and vibration manifesting different patterns in space and time, and the idea that these are actually two-dimensional versions of three-dimensional fields, and we apply that notion to all of these frequencies, then we can really begin to wrap our minds around the way that our cosmos is constructed based on energy, frequency, and vibration, based off of harmonics, and how we can use this understanding of harmonics to travel certain portals to different worlds, different star systems. Okay, now our ancient ancestors, whether or not you know it, our ancient ancestors understood this. Okay, that's why they created ziggurats. That's why they created pyramids. Okay, that's why they created them on these ley lines. And whether or not you know it, believe it or not, Nikola Tesla didn't invent, he said he didn't invent this, his Tesla coil technology. He rediscovered it when he went and saw the ancient Giza pyramid, when he saw the pyramids in Giza. He realized what the pharaohs, what the Egyptians were doing. They were creating almost like an energetic vortex using the electromagnetic ley lines of the earth and the already existing electromagnetic fields of the earth to amplify that signal so that they could have electricity, wireless electricity. So that they, and this is where it gets even more interesting. And they can use this almost like a tuning fork of sorts to get their consciousness tuned into the highest possible frequencies of energy and vibration in the cosmos, where they, like on certain days where the pyramids windows and stuff aligned with these star systems, they were basically able to embody these high frequencies and communicate and travel to these star systems. Communicate with the beings that are here and travel to these star systems. Okay, whether or not you know it, this is all ancient history. We've known about this for quite some time. This is just our real history, and the truth about humanity and the technology we have at our disposal has been kept secret. Okay, if you understand the idea of sacred sites, and you understand like places like the doorway of the gods, and the fact that like this is no joke. Okay, and the idea that all these things interconnect and they interweave with one another to create for a global civilization that understood space travel and technology beyond human imagining. Like it's incredible. That was my niece crying in the background. If you heard that, my apologies. So with this understanding about the ziggurats, the pyramids, energy, frequency, and vibration, okay, with the understanding of communicating with other star systems and the way that all of these frequencies of energy interconnect based on electromagnetism and gravity and yada, 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 all this stuff is stuff that our ancient ancestors understood. They used it to their advantage. They created a global space-oriented system that communicated with extraterrestrials consciously, like it was no big deal. Like, well, yeah, that's just the way it is. We're all connected. It's a living universe. Everything is connected, you know. So we're literally talking about the United States of America leading the way through the Space Force, leading the way toward a new global civilization based off of the exploration of space, the revelations of our true ancient history, and the return to an understanding that was lost literally millennia ago about our roots, about the truth about extraterrestrial life, and our place in the cosmos. Now, with that said, why didn't all this come out when it was discovered over 100 years ago? With this technology, and why didn't people? Why did we go to the moon and then never come back and then never go back? And why has NASA basically been mothballed? And well, it's because NASA is a front, ladies and gentlemen. NASA is a front to keep people thinking that we're still in the Stone Ages, that we're still using combustion engines, that we're not using free energy technology, that we're not using anti-gravity technology, that we have to use large amounts of rocket fuel to create a controlled explosion that thrusts us up into space. And that's all BS. Okay, it's all BS. All right, and if what you don't know is that the reason why this stuff was kept secret is because if you think about, like, when for example, when we went to the moon, okay, the time and place that we went to the moon, we're talking about people that had trouble with interracial marriage. We're talking about people that had trouble accepting homosexuals. We're talking about people that had prejudices regarding other races that were totally unfounded. Okay, so if you're talking about telling these people the truth about what we found out when we went to the moon, which is basically that it's an artificial construct, that it's hollow, that it's almost like an unmanned alien vessel of sorts, okay, that it's like one of the most ancient structures imaginable. It's like a relic from millions of years ago. Okay, good luck telling the people back then that's what they found. That they found a bunch of freaking ET craft sitting in the in what looked like destroyed hospitable zones on the moon, like what was once like domes, and there was like cities and stuff inside, all sorts of crazy stuff. Okay, we're talking about a moon or a planet that was terraformed, in particular to house large amounts of human beings, or at least some sort of civilization. Okay, and according to what they've discovered, this moon was basically, they didn't have the type of anti-gravity portal technology that we have. So what this moon base did is it basically used the already existing portals that were in the cosmos to travel all over the cosmos and get to Earth. So it used the already existing portals on a hyperdimensional level, on a galactic level, and on a solar level to transport themselves across dimensions in space and time, basically almost like riding the wave. Instead of like popping in and out, of space and time, they were almost like riding the wave the slow way, and everybody on this moon base or on this planet, this terraformed planet, would survive via the way that they lived, which was growing their food there. If they even had, maybe they 3D printed their food, who knows? Okay, which that is a technology that we have as well. We could end world hunger, but I'm not going to get into that. Okay, now with this understanding of these portals and stuff like that, we have to keep in mind that what we're talking about, like with say different octaves. Like I say, Earth's an octave, the sun is an octave, the galaxy's an octave, the universal body's an octave, etc. What we're talking about is different energetic frequencies of vibration that are stable and create certain planes of consciousness that can be branched to from one to the other based on energy, frequency, and vibration. And it's almost like each of these frequencies here is connected via numerous different energetic systems that end up like pushing the light and the energy through to these new frequencies. Okay, and with each new frequency, what we end up getting is almost like a new spike in the elements, a new spike in the creation of a different type of matter or a different form of matter. I go into more depth about this in my aliens and aliens walking among us video. Check it out. So what is most important to understand is that if we learn how to ride the octaves, then we can learn how to travel to different worlds. Okay, if we learn how to ride the energies and the waves, okay, if we learn the secrets of the universe based on energy, frequency, and vibration, we can literally transport ourselves all over the universe. Okay. Now, this is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, these bastards here, are the reason why we haven't prospered more as a people and as a society, as a global consciousness for quite some time. All right? These guys, the Nazis that were procured during Operation Paperclip or Project Paperclip, are the reason why the United States Space Force was not invented or didn't come forward until now. Okay, because basically these Nazi dudes had a hold in space. They understood technology, they understood anti-gravity, they understood consciousness, they understood much of the things that I'm explaining to you right now way back in their day. Okay, and they had things like Foo Fighters that we just didn't understand how they were doing. These things were like little balls of light about the size of basketballs that could go over and like zip all over the sky, go over to like a plane's engines, spin by the plane's engines, and then shut the plane engine down, basically frying all the circuits, and then the plane would go down. No bullets or shots fired or whatever, just shut down their freaking engines. Okay, this is the type of technology that Nazis had. They also had flying saucer type technology, anti-gravity type technology. Okay, and they got this understanding based on investigating some of the oldest, interestingly enough, like I said, global civilization, knew about space travel, anti-gravity technology. They got this understanding of how to create these flying saucers from the Vimanas that were in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, which are some of the oldest Vedic texts in India. The sort of the oldest holy texts in the world. If you believe what the Hindus say and the Hindu scholars, we're talking about stuff that's like literally over 100,000 years old. Okay? They understood this stuff. Vimanas was a thing. We're talking about flying cities. They understood this whole anti-gravity thing so well that they had whole cities flying in the air. Okay? Now, with that understanding, what exactly happened between the United States and these Nazis to where they stopped us from going out in space? Well, when we found out, well, first of all, it's important to understand that when we procured all these Nazi scientists, when the Nazis lost Europe, they didn't necessarily lose the war. Nazis just moved from Europe, from Germany to Argentina and Antarctica. They were already there, but they just moved most of their stuff there as opposed to losing everything in Germany. So no, Hitler did not die in a bunker of suicide. Hitler died in Argentina of old age, I'm sorry to say. With that said, when we found out that the war wasn't over, that they were in Argentina, that the Nazis were in Antarctica, Admiral Byrd, a Navy admiral, decided to take a fleet down to Antarctica and take back the base, the deep underground military base that the Nazis had down there. We wanted to take it and to basically finish World War II. But what ended up happening is that when we went down there, a bunch of flying saucers came out of a hole in the freaking ice, okay, and shot down all of our planes like that. and sawed one of our small boys' ships in half, like that. Okay, with like a laser, just sawed the freaking thing in half. Okay, so Admiral Byrd said, "I'm not losing any more of my men. We're hightailing out of here. We're outgunned." Okay, and it wasn't long after what happened. This is called Operation High Jump. Okay, it wasn't long after Operation High Jump that Washington, D.C. had a flyover on July 12th in 1952, a flyover of extraterrestrial vehicles or UFOs, okay, flying in formation, in military formation over the United States Capitol. Okay, and this is 7 years after World War II. Okay, not long after Operation High Jump. Okay, so this was the Nazis, Germans' way of saying, hey, we ain't for that. You know, we'll come over here. We got you outgunned. You're going to do as we say, and you're going to stay out of space. We have space dominated. This is basically what they were saying. It's the reason that this right here, mixed with this type of technology here, mixed with the Foo Fighters and stuff here, is the reason we brought these sickos into our government and into our corporations. Whether or not you know it, most of these gentlemen are pedophiles and rapists, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to say it, but they are. That's what gets these people off. They're pedophiles and they're rapists. Okay? But they're also freaking geniuses. They are psychopaths. Okay? Psychopaths who are with extremely brilliant minds, but like little to no emotion or empathy for others. And what gets them off is harming people. Okay? So when we brought these people into our government, they basically were still like sleeper agents, and we tried to get them to give us this type of technology and this type of technology so we could get this type of technology and not be outgunned anymore. But what they did is they slowed us down intentionally slowed us down and did not allow for the United States to basically do what it should have been doing the whole time, which was have a presence in space the way that these Nazis did. Okay, so that's why we brought them into our government, was to try to get and match their guns, but they held us back because many of those Nazis didn't all of a sudden change their loyalty because they all of a sudden got captured. Okay, they were still freaking Nazis, and they still had loyalty to the Nazi party, which didn't lose World War II. They just moved to Antarctica and Argentina. And if you understand the type of stuff they were doing in Argentina, we're talking about human experiments, we're talking about pedophilia, we're talking about rape, we're talking about like human torture, all sorts of inhumane stuff. They were doing the exact same stuff in Argentina that they were doing in Germany and in Europe to the Jews, okay, and to the undesirables, okay? So they were basically keeping the ocean of energy and these portals to themselves, okay? And they were doing so by inhibiting human consciousness and by inhibiting our understanding of our connection to the ocean of mind, the ocean of energy itself, okay? The ocean of consciousness. And it is these waves, okay, and the portals, the vortexes that create these waves, because the vortexes are almost like concrescences or huge like standing waves of sorts, okay? These harmonic standing waves of energy are able to be ridden with this anti-gravity technology or with consciousness, okay? And whether or not you know it, this is the other side of the Space Force, you guys, is understanding how all this stuff works technologically and with consciousness, okay? So with that said, the current system that we have is one that is parasitic on human consciousness. It is one that is parasitic on the life force of the planet. It is one that hijacks these vortexes and uses these ecosystems to exploit the as opposed to be symbiotic with. They're exploiting and being parasitic on these ecosystems. They're extracting the resources and destroying the ecosystems. They're extracting the oil, destroying the ecosystems. They're extracting metals, whatever, you name it, uranium, okay? And this parasitic relationship to the environment is creating a crisis of consciousness on the planet because it's dumbing people's minds down. It's dumbing people down, and it's basically inhibiting human evolution and human growth, okay? So we have a choice. We can either allow this system, which is basically run and controlled by the Nazis, and they're hijacking space, okay? And they're hijacking this technology. Okay, we can either allow them to destroy the planet, or we can band together, and we can use this technology to save the universe, to save the planet, and thusly save the universe. Because whether or not you know it, what happens here on Earth is actually a very, very, very big freaking deal, ladies and gentlemen. Like, we're talking like huge universe-affecting deal, okay? So the fact that the United States has a United States Space Force is a good thing. The fact that we have a presence in space that is beating out these Nazi people, not going to cuss in this video, the fact that we have the Space Force that's able to beat these guys is like huge, ladies and gentlemen. It's huge, okay? Because whether or not you know it, we actually have them outgunned now, okay? We have discovered things that they have not discovered, okay? We have technology that they do not have, and I'm not going to get into what it is that we do have. Okay, because in all honesty, I don't fully fucking know. I don't freaking know. You know what I mean? But one thing I do know is this, ladies and gentlemen. This TR3B stuff, this free energy technology, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just scratching the surface. Okay? If they have 3D printed food, imagine what else they have. Okay? So what's most important is that we start waking up as individuals, and we see that as a society, we have been kept asleep. Like I said, we have a crisis of consciousness on this planet. We don't understand how our consciousness interacts, interweaves, and interlaces with the tapestry of energy that is the cosmos and the mind and heart and being of God itself. Okay, and this type of understanding about the laws of physics, about the nature of reality, about these portals, about white and black holes, and the relationship of bodies in the solar system to one another, and all this stuff is basic understanding to advanced civilizations where all of the people are allowed to be awake. But because our country was infiltrated by Nazis after World War II, because the Nazis have had a presence in space that has been somewhat dominatory up until recently, and because all of that is going down, and the United States is prospering, which basically means that the rest of the world is going to prosper, we are able to wake up, move forward, and create a society where we have people we have a society full of people that are awake, as opposed to people that are, really deeply asleep. Okay? And we can end up being welcomed into the realms of galactic citizenship. Okay? Whether or not you can access places like this through states of mind. Okay? And dare I say, you can communicate with highly advanced non-human intelligences if you learn how they communicate, if you learn to speak their language, okay? And our ancient ancestors have understood this for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The shamans communicate with these beings on the regular, okay? Now, do they take rides in their spacecraft? Well, guess what? Shamans talk about dreams where they get taken up into the stars all the time. Are they physically being taken? Maybe. If you understand the type of technology that some of these ETs have, then quite possibly, yes. Is it all just a dream? Maybe. Possibly not. What is dreams? What is waking life? What is the relationship of the pre-life and after-death experience? How do all of these things intertwine? These are questions that are answered and known by these advanced beings on these really, really high frequencies and planes of consciousness. Okay? And it is because they have these understandings about the way all these things interrelate, the way the laws of physics work together, the way everything works symbiotically as a whole to perpetuate the process of life and the continuation of light accessing higher and higher dimensions of self, higher octaves and frequencies of being. Because they understand all that, They're able to use that they're able to use that understanding to create tools. And these tools give them extraordinary, what some people might even consider magical capabilities. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Know that I love this country. The United States of America is, in my opinion, yeah, it's the greatest freaking country on the planet. And if you understand the founding documents, if you understand what the founders were actually going for, the idea of a constitutional republic, a representative republic, okay, where power could not be hijacked, where power could not be seized by the few, okay? If you understand what they were going for, and then you take that model, that constitutional republic model, and then you factor in a free energy technology that gives everybody free electricity, free energy. You don't have to pay your power bills anymore. You don't have to pay for gas anymore. You can fly around the globe like that in vehicles that aren't, shaking as they're moving through the sky. Okay, that won't go down because they're riding electromagnetic ley lines. They're surrounded by an anti-gravity bubble. They're, coated by element 115, so they won't disintegrate even if they begin to decelerate or to go down fast. Okay. What we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is the future. When you factor in the founders model with those types of technologies, and then you throw in something like industrial hemp in the use of hemp, forget about it. Forget about it. We're talking about the future of civilization. We're talking about the next stage of human evolution, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about an American evolution. And through this American evolution, the rest of the world is going to learn and evolve as well. I'm Yellowstone Wolf, and I certainly hope you've enjoyed this video. And remember, knowledge always overcomes power. Thank you for your time.